Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jerry's Live. This is episode JL289, and I'm very excited because we have a lovely guest here from Golden. This is Michael Townsend. He is the material specialist over at Golden, and
Hello.
he is going to be talking about today color mixing and exploration with the new acrylic sets that Golden is offering. So, if you guys want to find any of the products that Michael is going to be showing you here today, make sure to go to JerrysArtarama.com and type in the search bar that class code JL289, and you'll be able to find all of the products that he will be showing and explore them for yourself if you would like to. So I'm just going to hand things over here to Michael, and let me get our view correct. And there you go.
Well, thank you, Ma. I really appreciate you having us here today. I am Michael Townsend. I work here at Golden Artist Colors. I've been here since 1989, so a long time being here. I'm doing quality control, research development, really custom work, and now as a material specialist, my main job is to help out artists all day long. So it's a great job. We get to work with our products. We get to speak with our customers and help them out. So always feel good. If you have any questions, hopefully paint related, you give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll take care of you at help@goldenpaints.com. So we're going to be talking about some new kits. We have 13 kits for the paints. We're going to go through briefly those paints, those intro sets, and then we're going to go into our unboxing of the heavy body version, and then we're going to go into some primary talk to really get things going while we go from there into some color mixing. So I'll just prompt this: if you have any questions, if you have any colors you'd like to see mixed, colors you might have trouble with, you let us know. Put that in the chat, and we'll be happy to try to make those colors. I'll do my best to match that color for you. So the first set we have here is a group of sets. These are the intro sets. These are 6 colors of 4 different paint lines. We have the heavy body and open and fluid and high flow. So if you're not familiar with these particular types, these paint lines, these are great intro sets. Just push them around, compare them to the paints you already have, try the different ones. Maybe you're not sure if you want high flow or fluids. It's a good way to compare them side by side and still be able to have great paint and make things out of them. The next group that we have here, they're a little more unique. There's the heavy body essentials, there's the heavy body traditional, and then the open landscape. These ones have a different set of colors than what we're going to be working with today, but very familiar colors. So we try to tune up the landscape paints to have ones that would work really well for landscape painting. Traditional, also very standard colors that everybody should know and love if you're a painter. And the essentials are kind of a bare bones set, but really is a nice mixing set and a lot of great, wonderful color to work with. And the heavy body is our tube acrylic. It's a buttery feel, has a nice consistency, but also easy to mix, easy to thin, blend with gels and mediums. And then when we get into our 2 sets with high flow, we have the high flow airbrush set. And these are colors that really spray well. They mix well together, really intense, beautiful color. And you'll see this is the transparent colors. And that means that each color is very balanced so that when you spray them on top of one another, they don't overtake. And with full strength paints, like a phthalo blue or that Diox purple, that can overpower almost anything that you work with. So this is a really wonderful set if you do want to get into airbrush and you already airbrush. Likewise, we have the drawing and lettering set. High flow can be put into dip pens. It can be used in all sorts of tools and empty markers. So we put together ones that have some really familiar colors for people that do things like sepia or sepia, depending on who you are. There's our bright gold in there if you want to do some lettering, and some silver, and then the indigo in there as well. It's kind of that kind of classic ballpoint pen blue, nice rich blue. And then lastly, the ones that we're focusing on today, these bigger sets, there are two 12 color sets. There's the heavy body 12 color and the open 12 color. And the 10 color ones are the fluid acrylics and the high flow acrylics. All four of these will contain the colors we're going to work with today. There's a set of 8 colors that really mix and play well together, and I'm excited to show how to make that happen. Some will be very familiar, but as we expand into an 8 color set, an 8 color quadrant, as you're going to learn, those colors will make a lot of sense. We talk about color theory. We're going to talk about warm and cool a bit, color bias, everybody's favorite topic here. So yeah, we'll start getting started here real soon. Any questions yet out there, Maud, or?
No, nothing yet. Everyone's just excited to be here and to be watching.
Excellent. Well, I hope there's all sorts of smiley faces and hearts all over the screen up there. So what we'll do is we're going to unbox this heavy body 12 color set. And I'm going to pop this open. This set has a great range of colors. We're going to go through these very intimately today. And inside of here is also a product that's called Golden Glazing Liquid, the gloss version. So we can bring up the number 8. We'll start showing these while I'm setting this up. So in this set, we have a range of colors. There's titanium white. We have Titan Buff. If you're not familiar with it, this is a great opportunity to try this product out. There's 2 yellows, benzy yellows, a light and a medium. There's 2 reds, a quinacridone magenta, a naphthol red, 2 phthalos, a phthalo blue red shade, a phthalo blue green shade. And we have 2 greens, which is the phthalo green blue shade and phthalo green yellow shade. Those are really tough. They all sound so similar that it could be quite a tongue twister. And then we also have, of course, titanium white and carbon black and raw umber in here. And we're going to talk about raw umber, especially as being one that's a really good way to work with these paints. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing new on our website. Is we have a QR code that's built onto these boxes. So if you want to learn more about the set, or you want to get some more instructions, you can use this. I don't know if we can work on that today, but that will take you to the landing page for each of these sets. And at the landing page, not only we have some great information, but there's also each one of these sets has been put into our color mixer software, the MXR. If you're not familiar with that, this is a really wonderful tool. It's completely free. And you can see here, you can pick your set that you're going to work with. It'll limit the colors to the colors in that set. And you can actually take those colors and you click on it, pop it into one of the empty tubes, pick another color, pop that in, and then just start hitting that plus sign for how many that you want. Todd's going to put in 50 in here. And then 5 of the phthalo blue. You could have done 10-to-1, also works. And it'll show you a really good replication of what that color mixture will be. And it's a really, really wonderful tool. You can upload images to it. It's an extremely helpful tool. It's a lot of fun. And it's a good way to see what color mixtures you can come up with without actually wasting the paint trying to get there. So I'd encourage everybody to go to that one. So with this, we talked a little bit about glazing liquid. It's a pretty standard medium. It is in this kit. It's not in every single kit that we have, but it's a really good painting medium, good blender, give you a little bit extra working time. But we find it to be a really nice one to put in here. It mixes really well with these heavy body paints. So we're going to get into some primary mixing here. So I'm going to move the kit collateral, the set stuff out of here. Put these over here to the side.
Really quickly, Michael, are you going to be using a retarder here?
Well, there's retarder is built into the glazing liquid. So the glazing liquid is a balance of retarder, water, and acrylic binder. So you can add as much or as little as you want. So for true glazing transparent color, you use a lot with a little bit of color. If you're just trying to get some working time, some blending time, you might mix 1-to-1. So you still have good pigment load.
And can you explain a little bit what a retarder is?
Sure, a retarder, its job is to retard the evaporation of water. So it's slowing the water, give you more working time. And if you work with paints and acrylics, water is your friend. You can add water into the paints. These are very strong paints. The binders are really high level in here. As you add that extra water, it will thin it very quickly, but it also slows the evaporation. So as water evaporates, the polymers come together and it dries and makes a film. So the slower it takes to get there, the more painting time that you have.
Okay, great.
Okay. So the way we have this set up, I thought that we'd start with some familiar territory. We have our benzie yellow medium. We have the quinacridone magenta, and we have phthalo blue green shade. These are pretty classic primary colors here at Golden. We recommend these quite often. Not to be confused with our primary colors that we have that are named primary: cyan, magenta, and yellow. But these ones are single pigment. So these are going to give you the most bang for your buck, and they mix and play extremely well together. So we can make a really wonderful range of secondary oranges here. We can make really wonderful violets and purples, as well as a good range of greens. The problem is that each color, every pigment has an inherent bias to it. And bias refers to the way the color leans. So in this case, this yellow is a reddish, a warmish yellow. And I'll bring this one in real quick, compared to the Benzio Light, which is a greenish yellow. Can we see that on the screen? Does that pick up pretty good?
Yeah.
So think of a greenish yellow, a cool yellow, as being one that has a green lemony quality. And when you compare it to a redder, warmer yellow, it'll have more of that kind of banana color, the banana peel color. You're welcome. Stacy said that would be a good reference for this. I agree. So this color bias is something that you can really work with as an artist. It's not a bad thing. You know, color bias just gives you a little bit of kind of static within the mixture, which can be really good depending on what you're trying to make. So I'm going to expand this now from this 3-color set, and then we're going to go to a split primary color set. And I know I'm using the word set to talk about colors in a set, but, you know, just work with me here. So I have these colors put together. And what this allows me to do is I have a really wonderful range of colors. And now these two are going to mix and play well really nice, because when you have a reddish yellow and you mix it with a yellowish red, it's going to make really bright and clean oranges, kind of like into this family right here. When I use the magenta for my red, I can still use this particular yellow, but there's going to be a blue bias that will get in there, and it starts to create a different color. It gives more of a burnt orange color. So if I bring this out here on this set, this is our magenta, this is our naphthol, and this is the benzie yellow. So both of these are mixed with the same color, and both of these combinations are extremely useful as an artist. You can see that if I was trying to make more of that India yellow, I was trying to get more of that richer sunset type of color, this is a really, really beautiful set. If I'm trying to get super bright and clean, like let's say I'm going to try to match my, is this really an orange, or is this is a cutie, right? What's the official word here? Let's get the studio audience to make me know what is this particular type of orange here. So when you look at this, you can start to see that you might prefer one over the other. You might find that in the highlight area, you want this brighter orange, this cleaner orange. We'll refer to it that way. And then a bias from this magenta, I might use that for some of the shadow areas, or maybe if I'm working on that side. So this allows us to get those colors really where we want them to be, depending on what we're trying to make. Again, there's no wrong colors. Even with a set, these sets are really wonderful, and they're where they work well together. These are all organic pigments, but the idea behind this is that this could be the pyro red light. This could be cadmium red light. Don't worry so much about the name, worry about the properties of these colors, okay? So I'm gonna put that over there.
We have a cutie, a man, a tangerine.
I think we have several votes for cutie now, is what people think it is.
Well, we get boxes of them when they're called little cuties.
Mhm.
Definitely.
That's right. Well, let's go with cutie. I think little cuties is a much nicer name here.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to get into, this is called the 8-color mixing set. Not really a mixing set. It's not primaries. So we've already been through that today and yesterday and last week during the briefing. This is really about having a set of colors that's much more like how computers read color. So Todd's going to bring up on the screen here for me number 17 on my list. And what we have here is a quadrant means that you have two colors that work and play well together. So you're familiar with this warm reddish yellow, and we're going to mix it with our warm yellowish red, and that's going to produce super bright and clean secondary oranges. Likewise, if we move down to the next quadrant, the red-blue quadrant, this cool bluish red is going to mix really well with the warm reddish blue, and we'll get the cleanest type of colors. We'll get these beautiful violets and purples that are really rich, and you can actually get into almost into a Diox purple, deep purple with this color combo. Moving over to the blue-green quadrant, we have a cool greenish blue and a cool bluish green. Both are cool, but both are kind of following this idea that you have to decide on what side of the fence you want these colors to be. But you can see that regardless of how we want to name or term these, when you mix these two types of colors together, you get your best, cleanest turquoise and teals. It's really a nice, beautiful combination that's trickier to get with a smaller set of those primary type colors. And then last, we have our green-yellow set. And the green-yellow set means if I'm looking to make really bright, bright, bright greens, almost like a chartreuse green, I need that cool greenish yellow to mix with my warm yellowish green. And with that combination, here's some actual mixtures. This is 10 parts of that benzy yellow light with 1 part of the phthalo green yellow shade. And then we take the same, basically the same ratio, and keep stretching this out to 100 parts yellow to 1 part green. We can get a really, really bright, bright, bright yellow green here. And then that brings us back here. Now, one of the other things that gets a little complex is we start talking about complementary colors. I'm not going to get into too much of that. We've got a lot of great information. I'm going to ask Greg now to pop up some of these into the chat. We have an article, Just Paint article, that's about warm and cool colors. It's all relative. So it means that if I have, this is my reddish yellow, I might have another yellow like diarylite yellow that's even more red. So this one then becomes the greener, the cooler one compared to that. That's kind of how it works with these. So it's really confusing. There's books and books and books on this stuff. If you don't want to read those, read these articles in Just Paint. The other one we have is about neutralizing color, which is using the complement of each one. So I'm going to use my dial here that's also known as a paintbrush. And as we turn these around, we have our benzy yellow medium with our phthalo blue green shade. And if you mix those together, they help to kind of desaturate and tone things down. So if I have an orange and I want to bring it down a bit, it's too bright and clean, you can always go towards this area to desaturate it, to get some bias in there intentionally. And these ones here, the phthalo green, actually got those upside down, phthalo green yellow shade with my quinacridone magenta can almost get to a nice chromatic black. It's odd. It gets a look of a purpley quality to it when you mix those together. Okay. So when we get into these colors, I thought we'd mix some of these bright yellow greens to show this point of how these colors will work. Let's get into that. Todd, do you have any of those overheads of the, let's go back to the number 14. 14 has the two greens next to each other. So we can make these colors really nicely without having that, but it's really helpful to have the right colors to mix together to get these super bright chromatic colors. So if we go to this overhead shot, I have my phthalo blue here, the green shade. I've got my benzo yellow light, and I can get to some really bright colors. The farther I go, the brighter and cleaner it's going to start to appear. But because I'm using a phthalo green yellow shade, and I'm mixing it, you see how much faster we're getting there and how much brighter and intense this color becomes. So let's see that with real life paint here. Get my card out. Probably people out there waiting to see real paint being mixed.
I know a lot of people have questions about the viscosity of the different types of paints that you guys offer. And so I think people are excited to see some samples of that put down on paper.
Okay. We have let's show the heavy body drawdown because that's the one that most people become familiar with. That's the number 9 on here. So the heavy body paint you can see it's meant to be what I would call butter, like table warm butter. And the idea is that we want it to be textural, but we also want this to be easy to move. So it's meant to hold the brush strokes, and you can always adjust it. With our fluid acrylic, let me get this put out here first. Fluid acrylics are much more liquidy. And I'm going to grab a random fluid. I'm going to grab one here that actually looks like it's been opened because those seals are really tight. Okay. So if I have a fluid paint, this is a liquid paint, hence the name fluid, but it is actually what's known as a short rheology. So with paints, we have a consistency. Consistency is a blend of rheology and viscosity. I'm not going to get into much of the weeds on here. We have an article about that as well. But these are paints that are very liquid, but they're meant to have still very buttery, very brushstroke quality. So if I work with this like this, you can see they're very easy to move around.
For those high flow, really liquidy acrylics, what kind of paper would you recommend? Would you recommend like a watercolor paper?
It really is up to you. I mean, we've made these things, so these are real paint. We could have called these acrylic ink, but we thought that the name high flow was a little more kind of open-ended. See how much thinner these paints are. Let's get a shot from Todd here. These are very liquidy paints. So this is a much lower viscosity. So when we start working with this paint, it's the same type of pigment, the same amounts of pigment, but you can see it's actually flowing and moving across the blue that's right underneath.
Yeah.
So it's a consistency, and the idea is that you should try to think of like what you want to use your paint lines for. We'll watch this high flow kind of work its way because this paint has a good flow to it. It's got some surfactant in there that's pushing the paint and making it move and creep up the fluid paint. So you're able to use these paints based upon what you want to do. So if you do a lot of airbrushing, heavy body is probably not the one that you would want to work with, right? I mean, you can get there, but it's going to take a lot of work. So that's usually how we decide the difference. Open is a little little thinner than the heavy body. Right here, Stacy got some for me here. Thank you. She left the seal on for me just to test me. All right, be careful with that. I've got a lot of painting shirts because of that particular safety device. So open, you can see it's a little thinner. And this gives me about an hour of working time. So if you're not familiar with open, again, get one of the intro sets and you can push these around. This paint will be completely usable tomorrow. Okay, we can use that tomorrow. It'll still be workable. If I want to keep working farther, I will actually come in and use a little open thinner and I can rehydrate that paint.
And one more question here before you continue. Someone asked earlier how the open acrylics compare to like a heavy body that's mixed with a retarder. Like how would those drying times compare?
That's a great question. Heavy body paints with retarder, you can get more working time, but essentially the unique formula of open means that I have the most painting time built into the paint ready to go right out of the tube. It's going to give me, again, up to an hour plus. With retarder can only do so much. Open has a unique formula. It has not only unique additives and retarders, but it also has a binder that's receptive to those additives. And they work in tandem to give you the most working time. And even a touch dry paint film, you can come in and rework it and get that paint to be blendable once again. So that's normally not something you could do with acrylic. So normally with acrylic, you brush it thinly, it's dry, you're ready to paint over it, you know. With open, it's going to be much more like an oil painting experience. And we find a lot of oil painters that have to get away from solvents or they're working indoors. They can work with the open and do the same types of techniques they typically do for their regular oils.
Great.
Okay. And they all mix and match. So I could actually use that benzoyl light here, just like I have the heavy body version. It'd be totally fine. So with this phthalo green yellow shade, I'll put it right into the open. And you can see how beautiful and clean this color mixture is. And by the way, if you blend these together, the more open you have in the mixture, the more time you'll have to work with it. So I can get to that nice bright yellow green, come down into here. And I can get to that super bright lime green color. Okay, likewise, if I take a little bit into my phthalo green, it's still a very bright, clean color, but now it's a much deeper shade of that same exact mixture. So you get some great versatility. You may find that you try to do a shadow color, and you're going to end up wanting to bring in some of the richer color. I want to get a little more of that blue tone in here. So let's go right into this, and you can see where these colors might really work well. So, you know, we're just coming out of the Winter Fest here at Golden Artist Colors, you know, upstate New York. And scenes like this, you know, we will never get here. That's just not what happens here. But you can see I can match this color pretty close just with these two colors. So when you're painting, what we're trying to do is use two colors that are similar, that have that same orientation within that grid. And because I'm in that same quadrant, they're going to mix and play really well together. But if I do want to get more of a dirtier mix, I can do that without really a problem here. Okay. How are we doing? I think we're doing good on time.
Yeah, we got about a half hour left.
Half an hour left. Perfect.
So plenty of time.
Colors out there that people want to see made up, or
none yet, but as a reminder, if you guys want to see Michael color match any colors you can think of, just let him know in the chat and I'll tell him and we can watch him mix.
That's right. It was actually my job for a while when I was doing custom work, is matching colors. And this is actually where a lot of this type of thought process came from, because with the computer, we have CIE LAB. And that is a software program that's used if you ever got a house paint matched and you bring in a sample for them to match. They use that software, the same type that we use, to find out where that hits on the color space. So it fits somewhere within that quadrant. Okay, I'm going to move these out of the way. And we're going to go right to, we're going to make this sky blue color, beautiful color. And then we've got some teals and some sea blues and sea greens. We're going to use these same colors to get there. I'm going to get rid of my yellowish green to go to my bluish green. And we're going to bring those right in. Trying not to make too big of a mess here at Golden. Although this is really the place to make it, I would think. Okay. So now we have our phthalo green, phthalo blue, a little titanium white. Plop that out. Got my blue. You can see I'm using separate brushes here. Basically, I don't want to contaminate the paints that I have to work with. I've got some jars because it's just a little bit easier to dip in there. I'm imagining most people are in horror how much paint I'm pushing around, but you know, it's one of the perks here at Golden. So you can see with this phthalo blue green shade, or phthalo green blue shade, I should say, it has a richer color quality to it. It's a deeper color than that yellow shade. And if I start to mix these together, I can get into some really beautiful turquoise type colors very quickly. In fact, the color we have called phthalo turquoise is made from these two specific colors. So
Lots
let me
of
get in
people in the
here.
chat were asking for a turquoise, so this is good.
Okay, so there you go. We've got one down. So this is the turquoise color, and you can see the turquoise here, this has a little bit of a greener quality. And if you do want to bring it in and be a little bit bluer, it's not a problem. And if I come up into here without completely trashing the picture, you can see it's not a problem at all to try to make these types of colors with these. You know, it's funny when we were doing this exercise, it was super easy to get here with these two colors mixed with white. So any of these, this is essentially the same recipe that we use. If you look at this color, this is really that, if you're familiar with cobalt teal, a color that we had and we lost for a little bit, much to the panic, dismay of the art community. And we came out with teal. Well, the teal is made with these two colors as well, plus the white. And then thankfully, cobalt teal came back, and then we had both colors. But if you don't have those, or you don't use them very often, if you have these base materials, you can make any of these colors the way you want to. Okay, now I'm going to really bring this out into a beautiful, beautiful sea green, a Caribbean blue. And anywhere is in there. So if I want to do some of the highlights, I can get there. I can see a little bit of a greener property within our color here. And I can come right in and get it even bluer. Super easy to make these colors. So these particular colors, when I set them up next to each other, we'll do that one here, do this one here. Bring that down a little bit. Get that one out of there. So you can see how it just combines together quite nicely. Okay. It's really very straightforward. And what I love about having these right colors and understanding color bias is that you're in control of where you are with this. And as you mix with color, you'll start to learn more and more of how to use the bias. If you're trying to make a tomato red, you want that blue. You want that more reddish, deeper burnt orange type of color. You're doing fall foliage. That's the type of thing you can work. When we get into here with these oranges, this is almost getting into that kind of Quin gold territory, Quin burnt orange. We can really use that color bias to our advantage and use these colors which are too bright and clean. And I think a lot of artists shy away from these organic, super intense colors because they feel it's a lot of work to get there and make them less saturated or toned down, relaxed more. But it's really not a lot. Once you start to learn how to get there, you can really make any color. If you find that you're trying to make a crimson, one of the crimsons that I'll use that naphthol, I'll mix it with the Quin magenta. And as you blend those together, you'll find a really great range of reds that come from those combinations. So again, it's not like a right or wrong type of thing here.
And speaking of orange, someone requested, they said they're having a little bit of a problem mixing this color. So they really want to learn how to mix a light orange without making it look kind of corally.
Okay. Well, that's, when I hear the word coral or corally, it really does. Let's bring these back. And now we're going to get back to those colors. We want to have our benzo yellow medium. And that's going to be the main part of it. We want to have our naphthol red light. Because again, when you look at these colors in here, I've got my reddish yellow and my yellowish red. They're going to mix and play well. They're not going to get into that corally. Corally tends to have a little bit of that pinker, Barbie doll pink type of color. And then, of course, we're going to need some white in here as well because you want that super bright color. So I'm going to try to make a bright orange. So we'll start with a nice base of the white. We're going to get into that. I'll get the white mixed in here. So the first thing I want to do is make this much brighter, almost a tint here of my benzo yellow medium. And then as I come in here with some of this, I can dial that right in. And get those really bright orangey type of colors. Let's get a little more saturation. We're going to come back with some more of the yellow. And I think that'll also help get away from that coral color. Do you see how that switched into that?
Mm-hmm.
And this almost gets into, this color is very similar to the color we have called diarylite yellow. And I can bring that in even farther. So what I'm trying to do is getting away from this color being too reddish, too pinkish, and getting into a nice rich color. Okay. Stuff with a light in here. It's not a color mixing friendly type of light, but it's not bad. It's pretty fairly accurate.
Yeah.
And then of course right into here we get right in with our bright oranges. Get rid of that white altogether. Or really reduce it. Just get a nice range of colors right there.
And while you have these warmer tones out, and I know this color can vary a lot depending on what kind of wine you drink, but this person wanted to see wine red be mixed.
Oh, we want to get to the wine reds. Well, hopefully your wine doesn't look like any of these. Maybe a sangria, but beyond that, I would not want my wine to be that color.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we can definitely make that, and we'll get into, now we actually want our magenta, because that magenta is going to be a really important part of this. I'll take some of that. Get that on there. I'm going to also need some of my phthalo blue red shade, but not too much because it's a really powerful color. And this will be good because this will actually get me into having some more violet-y purple colors. So I don't want to have too much. So when you're mixing these powerful phthalos, especially, you can see how quickly I can get to this violet color. I'm only going to need a very, very little bit. So I may even want to just pull the excess off the brush and just have just that little bit on my brush to work into here. Okay. Now, the other thing about trying to make these colors is you can see that blueness starts to take effect. I'm trying to stay away from getting into what I would call a violet range, but with magenta, you're really close. So one of the things about trying to make a deeper red is this is where that complementary mixing comes into play. I'm going to actually use some of my phthalo green. This is the phthalo green blue shade. And I'm going to bring this in because these two, as you can see, this makes a dark, well, it depends. It's going to be dark magenta color now. It's going to get right into almost a very deep purple. And this is the type of combination we use when we make our alizarin crimson, is we use some of that green to come in so we can deepen this mixture. And if you have to get a little, if you feel it drying, with acrylic, if it's starting to get a little grabby and sticky, it's telling you it needs water or it's going to set up and dry. So I just dipped my brush into a little bit of water off camera. And now I can keep mixing these together and start to get into these winey type of colors.
People are oohing and awing right now.
Let's leave this right in here. This actually, as we get into this stage too, this gets into one of the last things I brought to match today. And that is something right from my front lawn, which is this lilac. I think in North Carolina, the lilac season's already gone and passed. Would I be accurate with that?
I am not sure. I'm not much
Do you
of a
even have
plant
lilacs?
person.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yes.
Greg in the chat would like to know what blue you use.
The blue that I used was the phthalo blue red shade.
Thank you.
So we have that. Up here. Get that orange right out of there. So this is the color that you can see. We're trying to get that type of dusty blue, purple, violet type of color. So now I really need this white in here so that I can come in and start to dial in that color. So look, as we're getting into that kind of nice lighter purple. A little bit more white. Bring this in. And now if we compare what we have here, I'll get them closer and I can see, maybe on some of these I'm kind of getting that range, but I really actually need a little more of the red. I'm going to try to get some of that pure magenta back in and bring that in. Now, one of the things about this particular set, these 12 color sets, is that, this is a pretty nice color, but I often find I might need to get to where I might need to get a little bit less clean. I want to actually get some dirtiness in here. And one of the best ways that some people may say it's cheating I say it's just being smart, because I'm going to bring in some of my raw umber. So that color that I've made here, I'm going to take some of this raw umber. And raw umber is a unique brown, which it actually is really good at desaturating the color without overly changing it. So now as I get in here with this, I'm going to need to grab some more in. You can see how quickly I was able to desaturate that and bring that down a bit. So now we've got some nice spots that would be good shadowy colors here in these purples. Come in here, get a little more of this. And this is really the fun part of mixing these and having these sets, is that you can really play around with the combinations and come up with just going back and forth. You know, where does the color need to be? When you're color matching, there's no reason I can't get there with these colors. So this allows me to very easily move back and forth until I get into that range. And again, if you want to have the mixture and then come in and save it to figure out what this is, you might go back to that color mixer and get right in there. So I'm looking at this, I'm feeling that is not too far off. Maybe just a touch more of that red. And now I've got a nice soft color. So pretty fun, pretty easy work with that. Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that little yellow right in the center there. Gives a nice contrast. So that's kind of how we get into that stuff. And I've got paint on there, so I'm going to put that to the side. Any other colors out there that we're looking to do today?
One person did ask for a brown, but before you get into that,
Okay.
we have a question where someone asked, would an orange toned canvas dull the phthalo blue that's painted on top of it?
Well, you'll definitely have, anytime you have two colors next to each other, they definitely influence what that color looks like. There's some great op art that uses that to the advantage of trying to create that tension, trying to create that contrast. So absolutely, if you have orange next to blue, you're really going to, not only you'll see like almost a different color because of that. Your eye is fighting between those two strong colors, and it will change the look of it.
I think it was an orange canvas.
The orange canvas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have the orange canvas, but you paint the blue on top,
Yeah.
you know, that's going to cause that. If you've got enough transparency, you know, phthalo blue is pretty strong. You wouldn't see it. But if I use some glazing liquid, then absolutely, I would actually have an optical mixing because I'd be seeing through into the orange, and I'd probably end up with a brown that way. So we could get there. So what type of brown would our audience member like to see here?
Let's see if they answer. If you have a specific type of brown that you want to see, I do know another color that someone wants to see mixed is jade. So if we want to do that one in the meantime.
Ooh. Okay, I like jade. Jade's good. Should probably get a picture of jade. I'm going to put some of this white out here. So with jade and emerald, this yellow, you'll see a lot of colormen out there, meaning people that sell color, will take this color. I'm going to use my mixing palette knife here. And they use this, they call it emerald green. You'll see it also with the bluer version of this. But you can get some really, really beautiful jade-like colors. Super easy just by using those two. You have one color, you mix it together. So if you have the differences like this, I can get there without a real, you know, just struggle. So let's get into, this is the phthalo blue green shade. Bring that out. Get some of my yellow or my white. And we'll come in here and get that. That's probably more of that emerald green. So you really have some really, really beautiful types of colors like that. You can even blend them together. And you can get really the exact sweet spot that you're trying to make quite easily with these. And a lot of times people will get the blue shade, phthalo green, that's the more common one, but when we have this one and the yellow shade, it just gives us a nicer range without having to throw any sort of yellow into the mixture. Okay. Now, if I have these colors set up and I was trying to make myself brown, I usually think of like a burnt sienna.
They
So
did
burnt sienna,
specify for a tree trunk brown, whatever you think that might be.
okay. All right. Well, when we're making brown, we're trying to mix basically all the primaries together to make it brown, right? We need some yellow. We need some red. This color gives us both. This is the naphthol red light again. So let's mix this right into here and see what we come up with. Now, when you're mixing and you're trying to make a brown, your eye will tell you very quickly whether I'm close enough or not. What I see here is this is really red, right? You can still see quite a strong red. So I need to neutralize that red. And I do that with using the complementary color. And I start coming in with more green. We'll see where the phthalo green wants to take me, the blue shade. So as we get into that, I know if I start adding more of that same red, I'm not going to get there because I know that's just going to bring me right back to the red. So to avoid getting right into a really awful looking color, you know, I mean, bark is all sorts of color. I'm going to bring in, this is the benzo yellow medium. And we'll come in here. We get that. Now we got some of that greener property. And now when I bring my green or my red back into it, I should have a really nice brownish color. So let's hope for the best here. We'll get into some much more brown color into here. A lot of times I find that browns or tree bark brown tends to actually be much more of a gray color. So in that case, we could get in there and get that property. And again, I can always, if I've got a mix like this and I'm, you know, basically without a recipe, you just keep kind of making more and more paint and it just kind of, you dig yourself a bigger hole. That's when you come in, you might have to cheat. You might have to get that raw umber in there so that you can make this color and still be able to use this paint.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get some really beautiful brown colors. And if we start with, I usually start with trying to make an orange first and then add the green in. I started today with this one, I started with the green and went the other way, and that made it much trickier to do. So.
Fantastic. So we probably have time for you to mix one more color, and someone has really excitedly been suggesting misty blue.
Misty blue.
Yes.
I think that was my DJ name back in college. So a misty blue, one of the things that we should be doing is thinking of adjectives. So misty blue to mean, I think it's going to need some umber. I'm going to bring some of this right in. We could get there with something else, but we're going to get there today with this umber. I'm going to bring some of this white in. And then I'm going to use some of my phthalo blue red shade right there. So this is not misty blue because it's way too clean, right? But let's get a little bit of the white so we can tint it up. Get into this shade. Misty blue to me is a very light color. So it's really clean. So we're going to need to get a little of that umber in there. Try to not go too far to make some sort of greenish color. Now we're going to bring in the rest of my white. Get into that. How are we looking there?
I think that looks gorgeous.
Is it misty though, Ma? That's the key.
I always think for like a misty blue, I do picture something that's kind of toned down and gray and really subtle.
Yeah. I think so too. I think if you get too bright and clean, it won't have that property.
Yeah.
And again, that's why having a set of colors that allow me to have all these color choices, this is what gives me the big range of color potential mixers. And again, if you haven't used them before, that color mixer is a really fun tool. But as you look at the colors that you're mixing up, try to keep good general notes on when you're doing mixing. Get a sketchbook. Not sure which one to recommend. You probably have a good one to recommend, Ma, that you guys have there at Jerry's. Do some of these mixtures. Don't be afraid to add water. Make it a little washier. Write down that recipe. Could be just eyeball, kind of 3-to-1-ish. Doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to weigh it out. And then you do another mixture and you keep doing that. Watercolor is absolutely, that's one of the most favorite things watercolorists will do. I'm sure you've had plenty of shows about those.
Mhm.
Get familiar with each one of these. Add white to each one. See where it goes. Use the glazing liquid to get a transparent color and compare that to the washes, compare that to the tints. Really get to use those colors and get familiar with them. And then if you're playing around in the color mixer, you come up with a really interesting color, make it for real and see what you think of that color, because that's how you'll find signature colors that you can use and implement into your actual paintings and really create a unique quality to those paintings.
Yeah, and I will say JerrysArtarama does sell a color swatch diary. We have it for acrylic, oil, and watercolors. So if
I
you
knew
find
it.
color that you get mixing,
Perfect.
you can swatch it in there and keep it for later with all your other
Yep.
color mixtures. So, but it's been so great having you. This episode has been extremely informative and people have been very happy to see it. Let me switch to our dual view here.
Here we go.
But the episode has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. As a reminder to everyone, if you guys want to see any of the products that Michael has shown you guys today, go to JerrysArtarama.com and type in the class code JL289 into the search bar. It'll bring up all of the products that he has talked about today. And if you end up getting some of these sets and you want to show off the art you made in our Facebook group, please join the Jerry's Life Facebook group. We'd love to see your art. Just make sure you answer the security question. It will just make sure that you're not a robot and we can let you into the group. And yeah, next week's class is going to be illustrating with India ink with both Emmy and I. So if you're excited about that, be sure to come. And yeah, thank you so much to Golden and to Michael for coming today and teaching us all these great things with these wonderful paints.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, Ma. I really had a lot of fun. And, when you're mixing with paint, it's got to be a good day. And, this hour flew right by. So any questions artists have, give us a call, shoot us that email. We're more than happy to help you out here. We love working with artists. We are all paint nerds here.
Yes.
So really it works well when we have a great partner like Jerry's that we can, work with artists and get them exactly what they need. So anything we can do for you, let us know.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming. Bye.
Bye, guys.